Want more revenue without services? Add Tressic to your stack to turn conversations into outcomes. See how at Tressic.cloud.
Hey everybody, it's Doug Green and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm very pleased to have with me today Samantha Mabey, Director of Product Marketing for Data Security Solutions at Entrust. Samantha, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So we're going to be looking at some really amazing statistics. We're going to be going through a report. We're going to be discovering what it means to the MSP channel partner, telecom communities, and so on. Samantha, I really appreciate you sort of altering, I don't want to say altering, but curating the information just for our audience a little bit so that they can better understand what we're doing.
Absolutely. It's a passion project and one I focus on a lot. So it's really exciting to share this out to a broader audience. So very happy to share all this.
Well, the headline is, and we'll provide a link to the news report that came out, plus also a place for people to go and download the actual report. Digital Trust on a Deadline. Entrust Global Report finds cryptographic visibility stagnant as quantum threat nears. So that kind of sounds interesting. So before we dive into that, Samantha, what is Entrust?
Yeah, so Entrust is a global leader in fighting fraud and cyber threats with identity-centric security. So essentially, we take a comprehensive approach that addresses security from all angles to protect people, devices, and data throughout their entire life cycle. The part of the business that I'm involved in is the cryptographic security business. So that's your security technologies like PKI, HSMs, certificate keys, and secret lifecycle management. And that basically forms the backbone of modern infrastructure and digital connections. And of course, is very relevant to the topic of post-quantum and the post-quantum threat and the move to post-quantum cryptography.
You know, maybe it would be a good idea for us to make a definition too. What do you mean by post-quantum?
Yeah, so post-quantum, essentially we're talking about a point in time when a cryptographically relevant quantum computer is going to be capable of breaking the public key cryptography that's in use today. So widely used is RSA, that's been around for 30 years, elliptic curve cryptography, that's been around for 20 years. And essentially that underpins the digital interactions that we make today. So everything from secure web traffic and APIs, device identity, software updates, code signing, VPNs, machine-to-machine auth. Essentially what's going to happen is a quantum computer at some point in time will be capable of breaking that technology.
So let's dive into the report, and I'm going to put up, we have actually a couple of slides. So the first question that I have for you is, why is being post-quantum ready important for modern business?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially all the use cases that I just mentioned, you know, all of those connections are at risk. You know, you sort of brought forward the press release and the core idea that digital trust has a deadline. This digital trust that we're talking about is the connections and communications that we rely on day to day. Again, some of those core business use cases, you know, being the secure web traffic, APIs, all your machine identities, connecting into servers. Crypto is the underlying foundational technology behind all of this. And essentially what we're going to have to do is move from traditional public key cryptography. I mentioned RSA and ECC, and we're going to have to transition all of that cryptography algorithm systems to something that is quantum safe, that uses post-quantum cryptography as sort of a fail-safe. And I don't want to simplify this when, you know, I say we have to move from one to another. This isn't just a crypto swap. So this is about keeping systems online and preserving confidentiality over time. This is not, you know, we had a SHA-1 to SHA-2 transition 12 years ago, and we're still 12 years into that. And that's moving from a hashing algorithm to another hashing algorithm. And some organizations are still doing it, are still struggling with it. This is going to be far more complex and involved than anything that we've ever done before. And it is worth mentioning too, you know, the getting ready and why it's important is because we also don't know necessarily when it's going to happen. So more than half of organizations in the Ponemon report that you referenced, they believe that a quantum computer will be capable of breaking that technology within 5 years. So that's a really short runway to make that transition when you think about what I just said about being 12 years into the SHA-1 to SHA-2 migration. And then also in the Ponemon report, we had a follow-on question asking, where organizations were at in their preparedness, and only 38%, so well under half, said that they're actively transitioning now.
So okay, let's stay with that. What's at stake if you're not prepared?
Yeah, so there's a few different things to consider here. There's a lot at risk. So there's a confidentiality risk. So any of the data that you encrypt today, it might not be secure tomorrow once that cryptographically relevant quantum computer comes to be. There's integrity and trust risk. So if signatures are breakable in the future, attackers can impersonate systems, push malicious updates, or fake identities. And there's also the operational risk. So migration is hard because cryptography is literally everywhere. Again, it underpins everything that we do from a digital sense, security-wise. And many organizations can't even see it clearly today. So 43%, going back to this Ponemon report, 43% reported full visibility into their certificates, which of course is, again, well under half. And, without bringing the PQ transition into play just yet, 68% of organizations have said that managing cryptographic assets today is already extremely or very difficult. So again, when we think about moving one to the other, this will touch just about every piece of infrastructure. So between confidentiality, trust, and operational risk, there's a lot that will impact organizations that aren't prepared.
What does it look like in practice to be post-quantum ready?
Yeah, so I think what post-quantum ready means is sort of a combination of being crypto agile and having that post-quantum cryptography, or PQC, I'll refer to it as, capability built in. So the journey is known. The journey is long and it has multiple stages. So essentially, starting is knowing what you have in your environment. So everything from your data, where it flows, where it resides, to having an inventory of course, your security, which, as I've mentioned, is what's going to have to change, and the fact that you're going to essentially be touching every piece of infrastructure. So knowing what you have is the inventory of your hardware, of your software, of your keys, certificates, secrets, algorithms, where it's used, who the owners are, when it expires, any other sort of dependencies. From there, to be able to change it. So that's where crypto agility comes into play. Essentially, the capability of moving from one algorithm to another without disrupting the greater infrastructure and systems and applications around it. That sounds like a technology definition. That's a very common definition. It goes beyond that. It also includes people and processes. So, beyond technology, also making sure you have that centralized policy that runs all of your security and cryptography. Having built-in automation, testing, sort of that change control. And then ultimately, once you're ready, once you're crypto agile, introducing post-quantum cryptography and doing that in a safe way. So piloting a hybrid approach where appropriate, and that's essentially bringing in post-quantum cryptography to sit beside the traditional public key cryptography that we've got going on today. So that's almost like hedging your bets. So you're secure today, you're confident in that, but also should that switch flip and the PQ era has arrived, you're also safe against that. So that's the hybrid approach. Updating libraries and protocols, validating performance, upgrading any of your trust anchors. So I mentioned, a lot of my focus is on HSMs and PKI. So having, a PQ ready HSM and a PQ ready PKI, and code signing modernization. And again, a lot of organizations sort of get stalled right at the beginning of that, that visibility marker. So again, limited visibility cited as the #1 barrier that organizations are struggling with. Only 41% feel comfortable with where they are. So I think that, we can't let perfection be the enemy of progress. I think that, do that discovery where you can, and then start to move those pieces, those priority use cases, those priority technologies, and make sure, again, that crypto agility is implemented, and then introducing the PQC.
And is that what we're looking at here on this slide, that statistic you just mentioned?
Yes, exactly. So this is, there's a couple of stats we have on visibility. This one is to do specifically with cryptographic or digital certificates. So again, one of the credentials that we talk about. So your full certificate estate, your full cryptographic estate, being your PKI, HSMs, keys, certificates, secrets. This is one subset. Another one that we talk about in the report, which I believe is pretty much on par with the certificate percentage here, is keys and secrets as well.
All right. So, as we move into sort of the world of practicality, how do we prioritize?
Yeah. So I think what we've got to do is we've got to realize, and prioritization is actually, it's huge. So I'm glad that you bring it up, because the time is now to prepare. We've got limited time. So one of the things that we should consider is, people are sort of asking, when is this Q day going to happen? When is the threat going to be realized? Well, NIST, who's sort of leading the charge here, they've been running a competition on finding PQC algorithms. They standardized some a couple of years ago. They actually released a transition guidance recently that sort of said that they're planning to deprecate, and again, it's that commonly used cryptography, RSA and ECC, they're planning to deprecate it by 2030 and fully disallow it by 2035. So, the prioritization really needs to be in check here, because the timelines have accelerated with this sort of guidance. And this is guidance, by the way, that NIST has put out, again, sort of globally recognized gold standard organization as far as it comes to cryptographic standards. This is going to be followed by the US, Canada, EU, Australia have also said that they're going to follow similar timelines. So with that in mind, prioritizing is key. So I think it goes back to the sort of journey steps that I mentioned earlier. I think that it starts with that discovery and inventory. And look at your priority use cases, your most vulnerable use cases, or should you have long life data that you want to remain secure and confidential past the time that quantum computer will be realized. So if it's realized in 5 years, your long life data now has, a shelf life of 5+ years. Or if you think it's going to be realized in 10, that long life data, 10+ years. So find out where your most sensitive prioritized use cases are, data is, where it resides. Do that discovery and inventory. So find out what's securing it, what cryptography you need to transition. Look at the governance and ownership around those security practices, who's responsible, what policies are behind the security. Ensure automation. I mean, the certificate lifecycle and key operations are going to be key. This is not going to be something that manual processes can handle. So having, that crypto agility built in with the automation component is going to be critical. That needs to be prioritized. And then, of course, migration planning. So, doing PQC pilots with priority use cases, as I mentioned, talk to your vendors. That's going to be a really big thing. So we saw NIST and CISA and the NSA put out a joint fact sheet on PQ readiness. And, we covered that was #1. Another one of the steps that they recommended was talking to your vendors. Make sure that they have a roadmap, make sure that they have a plan, because they're going to help you get there. And if they don't have a plan, then unfortunately, if they're your vendor, you don't really have a plan. So I think that that's key as well. And another stat that I always love bringing up at this point in time, especially bringing up the vendor conversation from Ponemon, is that one of the biggest barriers with changing cryptography or implementing PQC is that budgets and skills are getting worse. So there's budget concerns. 39% said that that was their top concern. Next concern, lack of expertise at 38%. So, how do you justify the budget? Well, making iterative and incremental improvements to your security posture, investing in technology that's only PQ ready. And then, of course, the lack of expertise, whether you go to managed services or professional services, but essentially your vendors should act as that sort of expert by your side, guiding you along to this PQ ready state.
The telecom world is literally the world of long-live telecom infrastructure and embedded systems. So can we connect this to my little universe, and at the same time maybe talk about the vulnerability issue?
Yeah, so I've heard this term recently at a couple of events, and different industries bring it up as a concern when it comes to the PQC transition. And I think it was someone from the Canadian government at a recent event said, we've got tech debt. So it's just, that old long-lived technology that's been set up a long time ago. And again, we talk about the cryptography that's been in use for a long time. So has a lot of this technology. So I would say that, Telecom has that crypto debt, and it's measured in decades. So when we talk about, long life technology, so embedded long-lived assets, so base station components, edge appliances, IoT endpoints on networks, there's a lot of constraints too when it comes to computing power, memory, latency, firmware, updatability. So this really sort of specifically for telco pushes a phased approach. So just needing to prioritize any sort of upgradable components first. Obviously, software, network functions, and gateways. The crypto agility, I'm going to say it again, I'm always going to say it. And, to be able to swap the algorithms without, really, really impactful upgrades and anything, hopefully remote upgrades. And just aligning with the standards and the roadmaps. And again, talking to your vendors, that's going to be absolutely key for PQC support.
So what makes telecom uniquely vulnerable to harvest now, decrypt later attacks compared to other industries?
Yeah, so telco is already critical infrastructure and increasingly in the crosshairs of nation state actors. And essentially by carrying massive volumes of metadata, signaling, authentication flow, there's enterprise traffic traversing carrier networks. Essentially the harvest now, decrypt later. I mean, again, it's already under attack, the industry, but the idea of being able to not even have to break encryption today, but just capture and store it until that quantum computer is able is sort of very appealing. And this being one of the main channels that a bad actor can do so.
So why are cryptographic visibility certificate management becoming mission critical?
So I think a lot of this we've touched on, having to do with the PQC transition. So if you can't see your certificates and keys, you obviously can't migrate them over to PQC, and you can't keep up with today's certificate churn. But you know what? PQC is just one of the elements. We've seen complexity in certificate management increasing over time. We see certificate lifetimes shrinking. We've seen that in IoT for a while. But even just recently with public trust certificates, we're moving from where we are today with 398-day certificates. The lifetimes are being cut in half and until we reach 47-day certs in 2029. So they're being cut in half in just a few weeks in March 2026, and then in half in March a year later, and then in half one more time until we reach, again, 47 days in 2029. And this basically increases the operational overhead and risk exponentially. So, in a few short weeks, it's 2 times, then 4 times, ultimately 8 times, which again, just makes the manual processes outage prone and just increasing risk. So 43% having visibility, you need to be able to manage that risk, and you need to be able to, again, employ automation, because it's going to break every single manual process that we have.
And what's the biggest myth about post-quantum cryptography that you'd like to retire right now or reset?
That we have time, that it's too far away to worry about. As I mentioned, the timelines are approaching. So, NIST publishing that they're doing the deprecation of public key cryptography, RSA and ECC by 2030. We're talking about 4 years now. And we know that this takes time, but we also know that the quantum era has arrived. Essentially talking about harvest now, decrypt later, like we just did. The risk is alive today for those long-lived secrets and long-lived data.
And finally, as we wrap up, what separates the different organizations and their trajectories on this? People that have moved forward and people that are kind of stalled. Yeah,
so preparedness is definitely going to make a big difference once that Q day arrives. Once the quantum computer is capable, the switch will flip and you're either ready or you're not. And that preparedness will be the difference between resilience and disruption. So for those who are moving forward, they're treating PQ readiness like a program. We've got the inventory, the automation, the pilots, and the rollout. They have the clear ownership. Their different groups are aligned between security, infrastructure, PKI, network teams. They've got those vendor readiness checks versus the people who are stalling, who are sort of leaving behind. They're like, oh, we've got no inventory. We'll address it later. They're definitely underestimating the overall operational load, the dependencies. They're waiting for that perfect moment, which I think has arrived. A lot were waiting for, NIST to release the standards. That's happened. There's no excuse anymore. So instead of starting with visibility and crypto agility, which can just help your security posture today without post-quantum being a variable, they really need to get going on that.
Samantha, I really want to thank you for joining me today. Thank you for giving us a very rich background and in-depth understanding of this report.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a great time to talk to you today.
Where can we learn more about Entrust, and where can people download the report?
Yeah, so we have our website, entrust.com. The report's just a couple of weeks old, so you'll find it right on the main page. And yeah, welcome people to join it and read all of the statistics. We do break it down a bit by vertical, but it really tells you a lot about the PQ readiness, where people are at, as well as cryptographic security posture management more broadly.
Well, Samantha, I really want to thank you again for joining me today. I hope we get an update maybe mid-year. See
Absolutely.
How those companies that are stalled, maybe they got unstalled. Let's learn more.
Absolutely. We're learning new things every day. This landscape is changing, so absolutely would love an update.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
And thank you.
Make voice valuable again. Tresic turns every call and text into action automatically. Learn more at tresic.cloud.